For today's reading, we have two selections from Thomas Aquinas. The first dealing with the need for sacraments in general, and the second addressing the question of how Christ is present in the bread and wine in the celebration of the Mass. For this first question on the need of sacraments, keep in mind what Aquinas said in what you read last time about the use of metaphor in Scripture. There's a certain analogy between the use of physical metaphors in Scriptures and the use of physical objects like water, bread, wine, oil, and so forth in the sacraments. It has to do with the kinds of beings we are, that we are beings who come to knowledge through our senses. And this is something that Aquinas is taking from the Greek philosopher Aristotle. On the second, we have Aquinas' account of what is known as transubstantiation, or a change of substance, or we might even say a change of identity in the bread and wine, so that the answer to the question, what is on the altar before the consecration or blessing of the bread and wine, is bread and wine, but after the consecration is the body and blood of Christ. Notice that Aquinas' account is describing what is happening, but is not really explaining it, because it can't be explained. It is miraculous for Aquinas. But what is happening is very clear. The identity of the bread and wine change into the identity of Christ's body and blood. That's what the Latin word substantia means. But the appearances, what the senses can detect, even what scientific investigation could uncover, does not change. Those are what Aquinas calls the accidents or the appearances. So this isn't an explanation of how this happens. It's more an interpretation of what is happening, what Christ means when he says at the Last Supper, "This is my body, this is my blood." I also gave you a short article from the Washington Post talking about an English phenomenon known as the Sunday Assembly, a kind of church for atheists, an attempt to preserve for unbelievers the positive side of church, community, even a certain kind of ritual, but without requiring or entailing any sort of belief in God. I thought it might be interesting, given what Aquinas says about sacramental worship, to talk a little bit about, could you have atheist sacraments? Are there rituals that might be important to somebody even apart from God? Might there be a gathering together in community and assembly, as we've talked about, that is not tied to belief in a transcendent God? I think this should give us plenty to talk about in class.